Hi there, and welcome to Out There, a cryptid podcast. I'm Josh, and today we're exploring some true winter tales from Reddit. Stories of strange creatures, eerie encounters, and unexplained happenings in the cold, dead of winter. Let's dive in.
Hey guys, it's CJ. I wanted to pop in here and tell you all that we now have a website. OutThereCryptids.com is now a central hub for everything out there. No longer do you have to go to our Instagram bio for the Discord or Patreon links. Simply go to OutThereCryptids.com and you'll find easy access to our Discord, Patreon, TikTok, Instagram, X, and even more. You can listen to your favorite episodes, give us direct feedback, or even order my ebook, Dear Editor. OutThereCryptids.com gives you quick and easy access to our Patreon, where we've started a new show, Out There After Dark, where you join me by the campfire and listen to scary stories from Reddit. Episodes of After Dark release bi-weekly and is available for all Weird Club tiers. Starting in November, we're also joining YouTube. Episodes will be posted daily, starting with Josh's very first episode all the way until it's caught up with the main show. Thank you guys for listening, and don't forget to check out OutThereCryptids.com. Josh, take it away.
We'll get into the winter Reddit stories right after this. Happy holidays, everyone, and Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. Today, we wanted to do an episode that was perfect for curling up by the fire, with a blanket wrapped tight and a mug of something warm in hand. Telling ghost stories at Christmas was a huge Victorian pastime, so much so that it inspired classics like Dickens' A Christmas Carol. There's something about the long winter nights, the chill outside, and the fire inside that just makes you want to hear a story that gives you goosebumps. So, let's talk about some of the spookiest, most unsettling stories Reddit has to offer, with tales specifically of winter nights gone wrong, strange encounters in the cold, and mysteries that make you glance over your shoulder, even in the bright glow of your living room. So, settle in. Listen closely, and maybe keep the lights on. Our first story is from the user SSGT_ghost. I have been born and raised in the U.S. state of Maine my entire life. I've lived near the coast in the city, and for the past 2 years, I have been living in the middle of the woods with my grandparents. A very desolate spot between two semi-populated towns in central Maine, with little to no neighbors. It is undeniably beautiful. I have been coming to this exact house since I was born, and I have always noticed something off about the woods. Never felt a feeling of danger, just that I was being observed. Over the years, I had grown accustomed to it, and forgot about it after I had moved during the pandemic. But now, it's back. I noticed it during my first night sleeping here. Stacks of books still in my new room, and bad curtains hung on the wall, haphazardly, to ensure a sense of security. At 4:32 a.m., I woke up to what I thought was a radio right outside my door. The house had an old integrated radio speaker system wired into every room of the house, but it had not been connected for 2 decades. As I thought about those radios, I kept listening to what was playing. A genre of music I had never heard sung in a language that I didn't recognize. I had always heard tales of Wendigo and skinwalkers here in Maine, and the newly released, at the time, Mandela Catalog YouTube horror series wasn't helping the paranoia. I kept listening. At exactly 5:30 a.m., the noises stopped, and the sun rose. I had never felt so scared in that house prior to that moment. Several months pass, and my grandfather gets sent to a veteran's home due to his worsening conditions. So now, it's just myself and my grandmother. My grandfather would sometimes mention how he hears music and a language he didn't understand, but I just associated it with his dementia. My grandmother would hear it too, but I just didn't think much of it. After some time, it was October of 2024. No major activity that disturbed or spooked myself or my grandmother, and all was relatively going well. I had been going on walks down the main road at the time of the day and was feeling safe in my environment. Late October, it started to get cold, dark, and overall more desolate. I had seen some deer staring at me in my front yard, but looking back on it, I'm not exactly sure what those 6 pairs of glowing white dots were. They were too high off the ground to be deer. I went out and measured, relative to the tree they were near, and got around 11 feet. The snow kept falling over the coming weeks. The forest got quieter, and the days got shorter. I had heavy night owl tendencies due to my night shifts I used to work, so I would go to bed anywhere from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Around mid-November is when the noises started. Light scratching on the siding of the house, and slower thumping of heavy rhythmic footsteps outside. The tracks looked bipedal, with a wide berth. I know bear, moose, deer, and human tracks well. This didn't look like any of those. I would mention it to neighbors, and they would just ask me to not talk about it. All they would say was, "Be careful." Keep in mind, these people had been living here longer than I've been alive. I started doing research and found that the town sat upon old Penobscot tribal land, and was a common place for rituals and burials to be held. The sounds got louder and more invasive. The scratching became more of a carving motion, and the slow steps turned to a heavy and agile run. It was angry. I could sense that whatever was here didn't like me, or at least didn't like what I was. It would scuttle across the roof and bang on the doors, and then, one day, my grandmother told me she saw it. 2 white glowing eyes outside of her window, beaming into her soul from the dark forest, at precisely 3 a.m. I immediately burned sage outside and inside the property, and made an offering to the spirits of tobacco and chicken bones, in line with local tribal spirituality. All this sounds like something out of a book or a bad Netflix drama, but since that day, the weather has warmed up and the noises have stopped. My depression has gotten better, and I don't stay up as late anymore. But every now and then, I still get that feeling of being observed. And last night, as I passed by my old room across the hall to go to bed, I saw something big dash outside the window. Shortly after, we got a winter weather advisory. As the snow paints the landscape white, my anxiety grows. Whatever it is, it doesn't seem to hate me, just more so tolerate my existence. All I really know about it is it got worse when the snow fell. This one really sticks with you because it blends a classic winter creepiness with a real-life rural detail. Woods in Maine are already eerie. There's long stretches of silence, deep snow, and wildlife that can trick your brain, especially at night. But what's wild here is that multiple people in the house heard the same things: the music, the footsteps, the scratching. That makes it harder to just chalk it up to imagination. The music is the weirdest part. An old, dead radio suddenly playing a language no one recognizes? Could be the house acting weird, but sound also travels strangely in snow and cold air. Still, it's unsettling. And then the glowing eyes. 6 pairs and 11 feet off the ground. Nothing normal in Maine matches that. Deer eyes, sure, but not that high unless they're on some hill. Winter folklore in this region often links spirits or watchers to long nights and harsh cold. and the fact that the offering seemed to calm things could be psychological, symbolical, or something else. It's interesting that whatever this was, it didn't feel outright malicious, more like territorial or cautious, or maybe just annoyed. Could it be a very large animal acting strangely? Maybe. But the music, the height, the consistency between witnesses, it just feels like something older and stranger than the house itself. Something that becomes active when winter hits. Our next story comes from a deleted user account. When I was a boy, sometime in the early to mid-90s, I had the most terrifying yet poignant experience. First, before I get on to the experience itself, I need to supply some much-needed context. You see, I grew up on an acreage outside of small mountain town in Alberta, Canada. In order to get to school, we had to catch the Lakes bus on account of the fact that we lived near a series of summit lakes near the border to British Columbia. Due to the length of the bus ride, we had to catch the bus a lot earlier than the kids in town, which meant for most of the year our ride happened before the sun had yet to rise, especially in the winter, which is when this took place. It was an odd but beautiful thing to head to school while the stars still shone brightly. Anyway, it was one of these early morning school days that I woke from a dream. Well, I say dream, but what it was, only God knows. Regardless, even now, I remember it as vividly as the day it happened, well over 2 decades ago. There was no narrative. I just simply found myself standing on the side of the highway by a twisted-up guardrail. I could see the frozen lake beyond, and where the rail used to be. There was a gaping hole in the ice, and then suddenly, standing right in front of me was an old woman, soaked from head to toe. She was staring at me, pale and shaking. Where she then slowly raised her hand and pointed her finger at me. After this, she whispered an icy voice, as if it were directly in my ear. "It is so cold in here." And then I woke. Sure, it was spooky as all hell, but I thought it was just a strange nightmare. And so I got ready for school and got onto the bus. After about 10 minutes of driving through the silent darkness, I saw the lights painting the snowy pine trees in swaths of red and blue as we approached the shoreline of the lake. It was some sort of accident. As we slowly drove by, I saw them hauling a car out from the water through a hole in the ice. I would find out later that an older couple had lost control of their car and plunged through the ice where they drowned. To this day, when I pass that part of the lake, I can see her in my dream, staring at me from exactly where she died. The exact place. And I still shiver at the thought of that cold, dark water swallowing her up. I don't know about you guys, but I have goosebumps right now. This one hits different. It's not footsteps or glowing eyes. It's a dream that perfectly lines up with a real tragedy. That frozen old woman in the hole in the ice, the exact spot where the accident happened. You could chalk it up to coincidence or subconscious cues, but there's also the chance that he tapped into something else. Some people do have those weird one-off moments where they see spirits or get flashes of the past or future without realizing it. And the fact that he still sees her in the exact spot to this day makes it feel more than just imagination. It's scary, sad, and unforgettable, all at once. More on the winter Reddit stories, right after this. Our third story was posted by the user Nova Sunstar. From 1998 to 2001, I lived in a small craftsman-style home in the Laurel Mountains, not too far from Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. The home had a twin next door that was built at the same time. By the time we bought our place, the one next door had been remodeled and expanded so extensively that it was unrecognizable. The story goes that the property belonged to two brothers, and the brother whose house ended up getting a makeover had two sons. Here's the fishy part, which I personally don't buy. Our neighbor in the other house told us the two boys were werewolves. I didn't know this part of the story until my husband told me later on, after we had both experienced some strange things, which I will elaborate on in a moment. When he told my husband about this, he invited him in for a tour of his home. During the tour, he pulled back the carpet to show my husband a stone pentagram, which was built into the slate of the foyer floor, another fact that was not relayed to me until later. A month or so passed. We got a really sweet rescue dog, a Sheltie. She was perfectly friendly, normal, and protective over my 7-year-old daughter. But over the following months, she started doing some strange things. I'd get up in the middle of the night to find her growling down the stairs at something. During the day, I was watching TV or working in my studio. She would stand between me and the door to the dining room and growl for an inordinate amount of time. Over the months, she began to get a little unpredictable. She would wet on the carpet. She hadn't ever done that up until that point, and eventually bit me. By that point, I was pregnant and scared to have a biting dog around a baby, so I took her to the ASPCA. During my pregnancy, I started sleeping in another room away from my husband. He snored like a freight train, and it was hard enough to get rest being big and pregnant. One night, I woke up to something crawling up from the foot end of the bed over my feet and legs. I couldn't see anything and was so terrified that I couldn't even scream. I was able to put a hand up, grab the headboard. This was an old rickety double bed my mother-in-law had given us for our spare bedroom, and slammed it against the wall repeatedly. With that noise, I was finally able to scream, and whatever was on my legs disappeared. I ran to the hall to find my husband running to meet me. He asked me what happened, and I didn't know what to say. That winter, a few months after the baby was born, I was sleeping in that room with the baby, who was in his crib. My mother was visiting, and we had all been enjoying an evening in front of the fireplace. The whole house was warm and toasty when we went to bed late that night, probably midnight. At about 2 a.m., I woke up to the baby screaming. And when I tried to get up, I was so ice cold I could barely move. My mom and husband heard the baby screaming and came into the room to see what was wrong. My husband said, "Why the hell is it so cold in here?" The door was open the whole time. My mom took the baby out of the room, and my husband helped me out to the hallway beyond the open door, and the hallway and the rest of the house were still toasty warm. Thank God we ended up moving out the following summer. But before we did, my husband said he talked to the neighbor about our experiences, and he said, "Oh yeah, the two werewolf boys. Father had killed them, and then himself, and the boys' ghosts roam the two properties." This one really feels like a haunting rooted in the history of the property. The combination of the strange animal behavior, physical encounters, and that intense cold spot all point towards something intelligent and focused, not just a drafty old house. The fact that multiple family members were affected in different ways makes it even harder to dismiss. The backstory from the neighbor adds a disturbing layer, whether or not every detail is true. Trauma tied to a location often shows up in exactly the kinds of experiences described here. Overall, this reads like a powerful and deeply unsettled presence lingering on the land, long before they ever moved in. This next story was posted by the user Bingus___. Quite a few years back, when I was in middle school, I had two of my friends stay over. We would do this quite often and decided, since the school we went to was literally right across the street and down the block, we were going to go sit in the parking lot. It was like 8 p.m. in the winter in the Midwest, so it was dark out. We were standing on the ramp up to the gym door, and right across the blacktop in the yellowish street light glow, we saw 3 huge, and I mean huge, pitch black dogs run across the parking lot in front of us and down the block towards my house. We all loved paranormal stuff and were constantly trying to talk to ghosts or some sort of entity, so we were freaked out naturally. And so we slowly and quietly as hell walked back to my house and just sat in my room. There were never stray dogs in that neighborhood, let alone 3. There were 3 of us. I still think back to that and wonder where the hell they came from, or went. I never saw those dogs again. This one immediately gives off hellhound vibes. 3 massive pitch black dogs appearing out of nowhere, completely silent, and running toward the storyteller's house. And in the Midwest winter, where stray dogs are basically non-existent, let alone a whole pack of identical, huge ones, that's a classic omen energy. What's interesting is the number 3. In folklore, hellhounds and other supernatural dogs often appear in pairs or trios, especially as watchers or guardians. And the fact that all 3 kids saw them at the same time rules out imagination or shadows. It's also telling that the dogs never showed up again. With hellhound lore, which we talked about in our earlier episode, they don't linger. They appear, they're seen by the people they're meant to be seen by, and then they're gone. Almost like a warning or a passing through moment. Whatever those dogs were, they weren't normal animals. 3 huge, silent black figures crossing under a street light like that? That's straight out of a supernatural dog folklore. Perfect winter night nightmare fuel. Our next story is from the user Darwin Burr Sir. I'm a cop. My zone partner and I park our patrol vehicles at the bottom of a long dirt road that leads to an abandoned school. We only do this on night shift when it starts to get slow around 1 in the morning. It's a relatively safe place for us to catch up on paperwork or watch some YouTube. We have had several odd experiences there, from strange lights that maneuver quickly in the woods to possible UFO sightings. We even found a body down there years ago that still has not been identified. But that's not even the most terrifying. This was around October of 2020, 2 a.m. It was a dead night. Crime was low that time of year, partly because of COVID and partly because it was cold. We had parked our vehicles side by side, facing opposite directions, so that the driver's side windows line up. This is common in our line of work. My partner gets dispatched to a noise complaint and leaves. I use this time to step out and relieve my bladder. As I'm standing outside, I hear a whistle in the woods that are across the abandoned school grounds. These woods are roughly 100 yards from where I am parked. The whistle was a tune, like it came from a human mouth, and it was oddly loud. We do have a homeless problem in my city, but not in the area I patrol. But I assume a homeless person must have wandered their way to the south side of the city. I get back in my car and roll my window up, anxiously waiting my partner's return. My partner returns after about 20 minutes. I tell him the story, and we move on to other topics. I'm a believer in the paranormal, but he is a skeptic. Within about 30 minutes, he decides that he needs to pee. So he steps out and walks to the rear of his patrol car. He's back there for roughly 5 seconds, and boom, we hear it again. A loud whistle to the tune of a slow song. The whistle lasts for maybe 10 seconds. He walks back to my window, and his face is a pale, milky white. So, As cops do, we decide to investigate. We grab our flashlights and start walking slowly through the field. That grass is up to our waist. We get to about halfway in the field when we hear it again. But this time, it sounds like it's coming from our right side, where the school is. As we are standing there with our flashlights shining on the school, we begin to see the grass start to move. There is no wind. The grass is not moving around us. It looks like something is crawling in the field. The grass is moving slow, in a straight path towards us. We begin walking towards the movement. At this point, we both have our hands on our firearms. The air is eerily still, and you could see our breath from the cold. I can tell that my partner is uneasy. We are walking very slow and quiet. As we get about 20 feet from the moving grass, it stops, and we hear the whistle, coming from exactly where our flashlights are shining on the now still grass. Now, we are frozen in fear. We are scared to speak to each other. It feels like minutes pass, but was probably only a few seconds. I go to take a step forward, and all of a sudden, the grass starts to move again. This time, away from us, towards the wood line. Only this time, it's fast. Too fast for us to run after, so we just stand and watch. We watch as the moving grass reaches the woods. We both have our flashlights focused on it. And again, the whistle, coming from the woods where the grass just stopped moving. Only this time, the whistle is quiet. This is the part that shocks us. We are now shining our lights into the woods. There are several large trees in our view. This thing stands up. It looked like a child, but not. It's hard to explain. Despite our lights shining directly onto the figure, it seemed amassed in darkness. Before we could even call out, it stepped behind a tree and was gone. We gathered up the courage to go after it. As we get to the tree, there's nothing. No footprints, no leaves crunching like you would expect to hear in autumn. It was like it vanished into nothing. We spent the next hour checking reports for missing children in the area, and we could find nothing. The creepiest part is that it must have been running on all fours when it was in the grass. We have a children's psychiatric hospital in the city, but they had no reports of escapes. To this day, we cannot explain it. And to this day, we continue to park there. 3 years have passed, and we never had another experience like that. But my partner is now a believer, and everyone at the department thinks we are crazy. This encounter is unsettling because it has all the hallmarks of something intelligent but not human. The deliberate whistle, the way it moved through the grass on all fours, and the fact that it seemed to absorb the light instead of reflecting it, like a normal person would. When two trained officers both witness the same thing and can't find a single physical trace, that already puts it into a different category than a random trespasser or a lost kid. The lack of footprints, the silence where there should have been crunching leaves, and the way it vanished behind a tree all point to something that wasn't operating in a normal physical way. It's the kind of sighting that sticks with people because it feels real and dangerous, like you brushed up against something you weren't meant to see. No wonder the partner walked away from that night a believer. More on the winter Reddit stories right after this. This sixth story comes from the user Jim Boseth. Maybe this wasn't a cryptid. It's possible, but to this day I have no explanation for what happened. My uncle usually hosts winter parties at his house every year. One year, his basement was flooded, so we had no choice but to hold the party somewhere else. It was held at a nearby lodge. On the side of the lodge was a road, and across the road was a small section of trees with a pond in it. An hour or two before the party ended, my cousin and I were outside near that pond. We heard a noise coming from the trees, which sounded like something stomping in the pond. Note that when I say stomping, I really do mean stomping. Not just some animal swimming around in there, like something was deliberately and forcefully doing God knows what in that pond. My cousin and I went inside and told our other cousin, and the three of us went back out. Being teenagers and all, we decided, hey, let's throw rocks. So that's essentially what we do. A few rocks in, another rock lands in front of us. Whatever was in there threw a rock back. We all went back and told our other cousin, our older and more smart cousin, who decided, hey, let's go over there. We start heading over to the trees, and pretty much as soon as the older cousin sets foot on the grass, the stomping gets faster and louder, as if whatever it was running at us. We all ran back into the lodge and stayed inside for the rest of the night. True, this could have been a person, but it just doesn't make any sense. What were they doing in there that late? What were they doing in there at all? I still think about it. What it could have been. It doesn't help that my cousins don't even remember. This one really stands out because whatever was in those trees in that pond wasn't just there. It was also reacting, throwing a rock back, charging towards them the moment they approached. That's intentional behavior, not wildlife stumbling around in the dark. And the fact that it was stomping hard enough to echo across the pond makes it even stranger. The detail that their cousins don't remember it is almost the thing that makes everything feel even more surreal, like one of those moments that imprints on only the people meant to notice. Whether it was a person, something territorial, or something stranger, the intensity of its response is what makes this story so unnerving. This story was written by the user, Akron Alex. I should start with a bit about myself. I'm a guy in my 20s. I'm quite tall, 6'4", and train kickboxing. Besides my career choice, which is quite physically straining, I'm a vet student. There isn't much that scares me, and I'm usually an intimidating dude. My university is on top of a hill and outside of town. From my dorm window on the 7th floor, I can see huge white fields and the nearby forest. My first encounter was last year. I have a German Shepherd, Hades, and a husky pup, Ragnar. That day, I left university quite late. It was already dark outside. Usually I don't mind taking them out at night. At night I can let them run without their leashes. They are trained and I know they are going to listen to me. Besides, I knew everyone knew them and wouldn't hurt them even if they were left outside. They have collars that light up since Hades is full black and Ragnar is fully white, which makes it hard to see him during the winter. I could see them all the time. We walked for a while and they were playing and running around. At some point, Hades stopped and started growling, looking into the fields down the hill. I didn't think about it. There are bats, owls, and other critters around us. I leashed them, not wanting to run after them if they decided to go chase something. After half an hour of non-stop growling, I had enough of it and decided to take Hades home and go out so Ragnar can run a bit more. I got home and expected him to go in his cage. He likes sleeping there, and I never lock them. That night, though, all he did was stand on the window, looking out. Since the pup was whining, wanting to go out again, I tried to drag Hades in the cage and lock him until I got back. Who knew? Maybe he might try going out the window. I got a look out the window. On the parking below, I saw a black figure circling the cars. Thinking it might be someone trying to steal, I got a flashlight and shone at it. It wasn't a thief. It wasn't human at all. It looked up, its eyes reflecting the light from the flashlight. It was black, its head looking very similar to Hades. It was standing on all floors, but when I shone the light, it stood up. The roofs of the car were barely reaching its midsection. It let out a growl, which I later learned that many of the tenants have heard. Hades went wild trying to bust out of the cage. Ragnar was whining even louder. I realized he didn't want to go out. He was trying to get as far away from the window as possible. The growl made me flinch, and I dropped the flashlight through the window. I tried to see it again, but it was too dark. I heard the churning of snow as it left. The next morning, I went to find my flashlight and found a huge dog-like footprints in the snow and a foul smell still lingering. I borrowed infrared binoculars from a hunter friend of mine. Ever since then, I have seen it 4 times in the forest, twice crossing the field, and once came near the hill looking up. I and my roommate have been taking turns keeping watch at night when Hades started growling. I don't take the dogs out at night, and Ragnar doesn't play and run around anymore. He just pressed against my feet. I hope he grows out of it. Now this one has a completely different energy from the others, way more predatory, physical, and territorial. When a highly trained dog refuses to go outside, tries to hide, or panics at the window, that's a huge red flag. Animals don't fake fear, and they definitely don't react like that to ordinary wildlife. The height, the posture, the repeated sightings, and the lingering smell all point towards something that wasn't just passing through. Whatever this was, it seemed aware of the narrator, aware of the dogs, and willing to come right up to the property. That's the part that makes this story genuinely chilling. It's not just seeing something strange, but realizing it's watching back. Our final story comes from the user, Neo's Ego. It was mid-January a few years back in New York. I always loved the wintertime because of how cold and snowy everything was, but now I can't shake the feeling that there was more than just woods and snow out in a wintry forest. My family were upstate for the weekend to have some bonding. I just wanted to explore the forest. I was allowed to go out into the woodland by myself as long as I stuck to the path. I was out there for about 18 minutes before I started noticing something. I looked around, curiously, to explore the forest's beauty, when I noticed a very awkward-looking mound of snow, or at least I thought it was a mound. I looked at it closely, but it was too far deep into the forest for me to see any real features. I thought nothing of it, decided to go back home. After 2 minutes, I felt I was being watched, and kept on looking around me. I convinced myself it was just squirrels, and I kept on retreating. I smelled an awful stench to my left, causing me to jolt to my side, looking for whatever was out there. That same mound was there again, but it looked like something. It had these twisted bones extending into the skin, and had a pale white skin. Under instinct alone, I started booking it back to the house. I heard something chasing me from the woods. Lucky for me, I had multiple first-place track finishes, and I was running a straight, which in the end allowed me to get back home quickly. I got back into the view of my house and sprinted up to the porch. I looked back into the forest and saw the rustling of leaves coming to the edge. Then, nothing. It just stopped, and the stench faded away. For some reason, I never told anyone except my 2 best friends, who dismissed it as me playing with them. I hope I can find more answers for whatever I saw that day. This one has classic predator in the woods vibes. The sudden stench, the feeling of being watched, and something keeping pace just out of view. What makes it unsettling is how it didn't act like normal wildlife. It showed up twice, changed appearance when seen up close, and stopped chasing the moment the witness reached safety, almost like it was testing boundaries. Whatever it was, it clearly wasn't just a deer or a person in the snow. The description leans into something emaciated, pale, and adapted to the cold, which lines up with a lot of regional winter cryptids, and the fact that it stayed silent afterward, with no tracks or explanation, only adds to that mystery. It could have been a Wendigo. It could have been Bigfoot. It could have been something we don't even know. Winter has a way of amplifying the strange and the uncanny. The cold, the quiet, the long nights. They make every shadow deeper, every sound sharper, and every feeling of being watched just a little more intense. From abandoned fields and forests to old homes with heavy histories, these stories remind us to look over our shoulder twice and to remember that our instincts are always correct. So, what do you think? Are spirits, wendigos, hellhounds, and the unknown lurking in the snow really out there? Be sure to follow us on Instagram at OutThereCryptids for episode posts, updates, and more. Join our community on Discord, where we dive even deeper into the mysteries we explore here on the podcast. The link can be found on our Instagram. And if you're loving the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. As a patron, you'll get exclusive perks like bonus episodes, early access, and even surprises. See you next week.